Hello, everyone. I hope you are doing good. This is Tutor Hira, and it's time for grade 3 to grade 5 reading and writing. Log into aplus.com, use your login details, then go to Language Arts section, and under the grade 4, because it's grade 3 to 5 writing class, I have decided a chapter from grade 4 today. Chapter 57, Sensory Details. Okay, so you can open grade 4, chapter 57, Sensory Details. There is one lesson only. The lesson name is Identify Sensory Details. Well, writers use sensory details to make stories and scenes easier for the reader to imagine. A sensory detail makes the reader imagine a particular sight, sound, smell, taste, or touch. When you read something, you can observe, if you read specifically, if you are reading stories, you can observe that writers use sensory details to make the scenes easier for the reader to imagine. There are certain words which are used to create images in the minds of the readers. And a sensory detail makes the reader imagine a particular sight, means a scene, a particular sound, a particular smell, a specific taste, or touch. So, by just reading the words written by the writers, you can imagine these particular things like scenes, sounds, smells, taste, or touch. A particular sight. Let's read one example. John's face glowed from the light of the fire. So these words, glowed from the light of the fire, they create in the a scene in the mind of the reader. Like if I read it, I can create an image of my mind in my mind of a face which is glowing from the light of the fire, which glows a lot, like the light of the fire. Before continuing, I would like to welcome all the students. Hello, everyone. Okay, so this is a particular site, and when you read these words, you can create an image in your mind of a light from the fire. The next one, an image of a sound can be created using sensory details. In the morning, Samantha awoke to the chirping of birds outside her window. Now, this is a sensory detail. And which sense does it refer to? Sense of sound. Because it's the chirping of birds, the sound that the birds produce. It's called chirping of birds. So when you read this sensory detail, you can easily imagine, you can easily create an image in your mind of the sound of the birds, chirping of birds. So, this sensory detail refers to the sense of sound. And in this one, I caught a whiff of freshly baked bread as I passed by the bakery. Freshly baked bread, if you read this sensory detail, you can imagine the smell of freshly baked bread. If you have ever smelt it, like if you have ever baked bread at home, or if you have ever seen any other person baking fresh bread at home, you can imagine the smell, the scent, the smell of freshly baked bread. So this sensory detail refers to the sense of smell. And if you talk about sense of taste, the sharply sour apple made Mary's mouth pucker. This detailed sharply sour apple, if you have ever tasted sour apple or sharply sour apple, you can easily imagine it. It refers to the sense of taste. Then comes sense of touch. Ted was uncomfortable in his scratchy wool sweater. Who has not experienced this? Like when we wear woolen clothes, woolen sweaters, they scratch you. Everybody must have experienced it. So this detail, scratchy wool sweater, you can easily imagine it, and it refers to the sense of touch. So all these sensory details refer to a particular sight, sound, smell, taste, or touch. And writers use them, use these details, sensory details, to make their stories and scenes interesting and easier for the reader to imagine. Now we'll go through some texts and we'll find out, or we'll identify the sensory details. Okay, now we will select the sentence with a sensory detail that describes a sight. A sight means a scene. Let's read it. Rebecca and Tammy were waiting for Katie to drive them home after school soccer practice. They stood silently under a street light. Their practice had lasted into the night, and they were exhausted. Under the streetlight, their shadows looked long and thin against the sidewalk. Rebecca giggled to herself. She thought that it must be from all those stretching exercises that they did at practice. Now, which sentence out of these two shows a sensory detail that describes a sight? Sight means a scene. Under the streetlight, their shadows looked long and thin against the sidewalk, or they were exhausted. Which one describes a sight, a scene? Option one, option two. Well, as you can see, option one, under the streetlight, their shadows looked long and thin against the sidewalk. So, this detail, when you read it, it describes a sight, or you can say a scene. They were exhausted. It just presents their feeling, but this describes a sight, a scene. So, option one is correct. Now, select the sentence with a sensory detail that describes a taste, specifically, that describes a taste. I always knew that Bet's family had some unusual ideas. Yesterday, I found out that they eat insects. They even gave me some, and I survived. Bet's mom fed me some cricket cookies, which were nutty and sweet. I was surprised that I liked them so much. In fact, I think she could sell those cookies. Well, she could as long as she didn't tell people what was in them. Now there are two options. Which sentence describes a taste? With this, which sentence has a sensory detail that describes a taste? Bet's mom fed me some cricket cookies, which were nutty and sweet. Or they even gave me some and I survived. Option one, option two. Which one describes a taste? Well, I've got an answer, one answer. Similar is saying it's option one. The rest of you, you're not answering. I'm waiting for it. Yes, it's correct. Option one. Bet's mom fed me some cricket cookies, which were nutty. You can, imagine nutty and sweet flavor taste. So it describes a taste. You are familiar with nutty and sweet taste, so you can easily imagine it. And it describes a taste. Let's read this one and select the sentence with a sensory detail that describes a sound. At midnight, the noise of the howling coyotes woke Ruddy up again. Around him, the other ranch workers were asleep in their bunks. His father had said this summer job at the ranch would teach Ruddy many things. So far, Ruddy had learned that he didn't like horses or cattle, and he really didn't like flies or coyotes. Ruddy pulled the covers over his head. Next summer, he wanted to be a lifeguard at the city pool. Which sentence has a sensory detail that describes the sound? Option one, this one. At midnight, the noise of the howling coyotes woke Ruddy up again. Or this one. Around him, the other ranch workers were asleep in their bunks. Which sentence has a sensory detail that describes a sound? Well, Semilor is saying it's option one, and only you have answered Semilor. Okay. Yes, it's option one. Option one, at midnight, the noise of the howling coyotes woke Reddy up. So it describes a sound. You're right. Now, select the sentence with a sensory detail that describes a smell. My brother, Mitchell, came home from the hospital last month. The doctor said he was all better and didn't have to go back. I was really glad because I missed him. Also, the last time I visited him in the hospital, I almost fainted. A janitor was cleaning the hall as I walked by. I caught a whiff of his super strength cleaning soap and almost fell over. I'm glad I don't have to go back there to see Mitchell. Now, which sentence describes the smell? A janitor was cleaning the hall as I walked by. Or, I caught a whiff of his super strength cleaning soap and almost fell over. Well, yes, it's option two. Similar. You just have to answer one time, okay? I will get your answer. It's enough. Thank you very much. It's option two, yes. I caught a whiff. Whiff means scent of his super strength cleaning soap. You know, these cleaning soaps and liquids, they have a very sharp smell, scent. So we can easily imagine that smell. So this sentence describes a smell. Now select the sentence with a sensory detail that describes a sound. Mr. Gilmore had a job selling encyclopedias. He sold them to people in their homes rather than in a store. He walked from house to house. At each new door, he pushed a button and listened to the doorbell ring. If someone answered, Mr. Gilmore talked to people about his books. He said they contained information and knowledge that everybody needed. Mr. Gilmore tells a good story, and I suspect he has sold many encyclopedias. Now, which sensory detail describes the sound? If someone answered, Mr. Gilmore talked to people about his books. Or, at each new door, he pushed a button and listened to the doorbell ring. Okay, yes, the answer is option two. At each new door, he pushed a button and listened to the doorbell ring. Okay, now select the sentence with a sensory detail that describes a smell. Last night, a big storm blew in and dumped several inches of rain on the city. This morning, the earthy scent of worms blew in through James's open window. James knew that it would be a good morning to go fishing. He headed outdoors with a container to catch some worms for bait. When he had enough, he grabbed his tackle box and fishing pole and he headed to the lake. Which sentence describes a smell? This morning, the earthy scent of worms blew in through James's open window. Or, last night, a big storm blew in and dumped several inches of rain on the city. Tell which one describes smell. Okay, yeah, it's option one. The earthy scent. The earthy scent of worms blew in. So you can easily imagine a scent. When it rains, the earthy scent of worms. Now select the sentence with a sensory detail that describes a sight, means a scene. Yesterday, our class took a field trip to the zoo. Mr. Shepherd told everyone to pick an animal for our field trip report. When I saw the parrot's beautiful red, green, and yellow feathers, I picked parrots. Mark says I should write about how pirates always kept parrots on their ships. Knowing my brother Mark, I think I'll need to check the facts file first. Well, which sentence describes a sight? Mark says I should write about how pirates always kept parrots on their ships. Or, when I saw the parrot's beautiful red, green, and yellow feathers, I picked parrots. Which one has a sensory detail that describes a sight? So, Semi-Lauren Ruan is saying it's option two. Manoj is also saying it's option two. Is it? Yes, it's option two. When I saw the parrot's beautiful red, green, and yellow feathers. See the use of the words which describe this parrot, its beautiful feathers, red, green, and yellow feathers. You can easily imagine a parrot with red, yellow, and green feathers. So it describes a sight. Very well. Good job. Okay, now select the sentence with a sensory detail that describes the sound. The baseball flew across the street, and Joseph started to run after it. Suddenly, he heard a truck's horn blare just ahead. Joseph stopped on the sidewalk as the truck passed. Close one, Joseph thought. He waited for the traffic to clear before he crossed. There were four more innings to go, and he didn't want to miss one play. Which sentence is with a sensory detail that describes the sound? The baseball flew across the street and Joseph started to run after it. Or suddenly he heard a truck's horn blare just ahead. Well, I've got an answer. Manoj is saying it's option two. Yes, this sentence describes the sound. He heard a truck's horn blare. So this is a sound. Select the sentence with a detail that describes a taste. Ming liked getting his teeth cleaned at Dr. Christensen's office. Dr. Christensen's assistant was friendly and gentle and always explained what she was doing. She told him about the different tools she used when she cleaned his teeth. Plus, she let him choose which toothpaste she would use. He loved the sweet flavor of the bubble gum toothpaste. His mom never let him have bubble gum at home. Ming was pretty sure mom would be fine with this, though, since it was just toothpaste. So which sentence? His mom never let him have bubble gum at home, or he loved the sweet flavor of the bubble gum toothpaste. Which sentence describes a taste? Yes, okay. So we have some answers. It's option two, right? Sweet flavor of the bubble gum toothpaste. This sentence obviously describes a taste. Now select a sentence with a sensory detail that describes a sight, means a scene. The year that Kurt was a clown for Halloween, he won a prize for the best costume. I couldn't believe it when I saw he had colored his hair with green and purple stripes. The funny thing is, whatever he used in his hair did not wash out. For all of November and most of December, Kurt kept his hat on. Now, which sentence describes a sight? The funny thing is, whatever he used in his hair did not wash out, or I couldn't believe it when I saw he had colored his hair with green and purple stripes. Which one describes a sight? Well, only some of you are answering, and if you answer, it means you are learning, you are paying attention. Okay. So, yes, it's option two again because it talks about the color green and purple stripes in the hair. Now, select a sentence that describes the site. Last weekend, my family Buddy had a great time playing with his toys and sleeping on the sand. Late in the day, though, Buddy got himself into some trouble. We were all busy enjoying the view of the brilliant orange sunset. Meanwhile, Buddy was busy eating sand. We figured out what had happened later that night when Buddy had a stomach ache. Well, with sentence. We were all busy enjoying the view of the brilliant orange sunset. Or late in the day, though, Buddy got himself into some trouble, which describes the sight. Yes, we have the answer. Well, similar. Your answer is correct. It's option one. We were all busy enjoying the view of the brilliant orange sunset. This description, view of the brilliant orange sunset, this describes a sight. You can easily imagine on an orange sunset if you have ever observed it. Select the sentence with a sensory detail that describes a smell. In science class today, Mr. Avila gave each student a little jar of some powder. The students had to figure out what was inside their jars. Most of the students just stared at their jars, not knowing what to do. But Sandra has an idea. She opened her jar and took a small sniff. She then she then declared to the class that her jar held something that stank like rotten eggs. Now, which sentence has a sensory detail that describes a smell? She opened her jar and took a small sniff, or she then declared to the class that her jar held something that stank like rotten eggs. Hmm. Yes, it's option two. She then declared to the class that her jar held something that stank like rotten eggs. This describes a smell, obviously. Okay, so students, I hope you understand how to identify sensory details. And you can complete the remaining test, the questions, after the class. I'll see you again in this week. Till then, have a great time.